Hello, welcome to RC Projects and welcome to the new drift project. Now I'm currently running a shaft driven 4-wheel drive Tamiya T201E, the original drift project. Most of you guys would have seen that anyway, I imagine. But I am currently running that at all the drift events that I go to, but most of the guys are running either a counter steer or rear wheel drive setup. So I have got this MST RMX 2.0. It's a fairly new to the market chassis. I got it just before Christmas. I got it in a bundle with an upgraded shock set as well from MST. These are the TR56 shocks in red. So I've also got all the electronics for it, but I'll be showing you those when we get to that part. Now with this kit, you don't get a pinion gear. It's just a basic kit. You only get the chassis. You don't even get wheels. So it's fairly cheap, but you don't get a lot of the things that are included in most kits. You don't get any of the electronics, and you don't get wheels, and you also don't get a pinion gear. I think you do get a spur gear, but you don't get a pinion gear. Now this car specifically has a changeable rear gearing system to change the speed of the wheels, but those parts are quite difficult to get hold of, so most people opt to change the size of the pinion and spur gear. So I've gone for 3 that are the most common pinion and spurs that they run at the tracks that I visit. So they've got some Serpent spur gears and some racing aluminium pinion gears. So I can change the ratio and all that sort of stuff. So I've got those there. And yeah, we're going to get this build started today. I'll quickly show you what you get in the box. I'm not going to go through every single part, but there's not actually a lot to this kit. Because it's only rear wheel drive, you don't have to worry about a front diff or front drive shafts or anything like that. It's a fairly basic drift kit. So yeah, I'll quickly show you what's in the box and then we'll begin the build. So like I said, not much to this kit. You don't get a body with it, you don't get wheels and tyres. You only get the basics that you need. So it does come with a set of shocks already. They're plastic bodied with an aluminium thread for the preload, springs, oil and the basic shock components. But being as I've got the upgraded ones, I'll probably put these in the MO6 lunchbox project. Just some nice decent shocks. And I've got the various plastic parts here. Got some realistic brake calipers, which is quite nice. They attach onto the actual hub, so when the wheel spins the caliper stays where it is, but the disc behind spins. So that's quite nice. I've got all the various plastic components. I'm not going to go through every single one. Just going to quickly help you through. I think I've got some servo horns there, which is nice. There's the pinion gear, just the spur gear. Sorry, keep getting those mixed up. I think that's an 80 tooth, and I've got a lower tooth on the spur and a higher tooth on the pinion. Gives us some more speed, because I think from stock this is set up as to drift on concrete rather than carpet. So you need faster wheel speed for carpet. So that's the rear diff housing. Got more chassis brace bits. It's all numbered. So I've never built an MST kit before, so I'm not sure how this is going to go. We'll find out. But all the various plastic bits, get some tools in there, which is quite nice. Some Allen keys, one of the turnbuckle wrenches, wheel nuts, body clips. Don't know what that is yet. Not sure. Oh, it's some sort of wheel wrench. And we've got the plastic chassis. So you got vent holes here for the electronics to keep them cool when you're going sideways. But yeah, it's plastic. It's very rigid for a plastic chassis. You can obviously upgrade these when they release the parts for aluminium or graphite, all that sort of stuff. But I'm going to be keeping this fairly stock, fairly budget anyway. And then we've got all the instructions and stickers and all that sort of stuff. The instructions look clear enough, black and white, but yeah, detailed. It's similar to a Tamiya kit really. You've got a full parts list up the side of this step. Looks like it's going to be a nice, easy build. I do know, I have seen a couple of videos of this chassis being built before, and there is a bit of difficulty with the rear diff and the gearing and all that sort of stuff. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But all the bags are numbered, and there's very little parts trees actually. They're all pre-cut, which is quite nice. Might just have to clean all the little bits off, the little gnarly bits. Yeah, we'll begin with step 1. There's your basic layout for one of the front lower arms. It's quite nice. You've actually got an embossed MST logo on all the big parts. It's nice to see. Nice little detail. You've obviously got a left and a right hand side, so just remember that when you're building it. But now we're going to be attaching it to the bottom chassis plate. So you can see all the vent holes there for cooling, and all the holes are countersunk on the bottom, so you've got a nice smooth edge so you don't damage the carpet when you're drifting. Again, there's your layout for step 2 in order. So you've got those screws go into the bottom of these suspension arm mounts. You've got a spacer at the front but not at the rear, and then you've obviously got the arms left and right hand, so you've got those 2 ball mounts facing forwards. And that's the front lower arm setup done. So you can see the setup areas coming out, so we've got a 1/2 mm spacer under there, but not one at the back, and then we've got different size spacers that we can put in here in different positions. So yeah, there's an awful lot of adjustment when it comes to drifting chassis, so that's what I've got to get used to and learn about. There's your rear lower arm setup. So I've got these different size spacers here that slot into the mounts on the chassis, and there's the shock mount at the back, so I've got 4 positions for the shock. So again, that 1/2 mm spacer that like we had at the front, there's one at the rear as well for the outermost mounting point. That's all lower arms assembled onto the chassis. There's an extra bit here, I can do this later, but it says if you want a bit more downstroke, there's a little bit of the chassis you can cut off to get a bit more, which is actually just there. So I'm going to leave it for now. If I do want to, it's pretty easy just to access anyway. Now we're on to the front upper arm setup. So there's your, I've already built one arm, but that gap there needs to be 6 mm, so you will need a vernier caliper just to measure it. And this is the front upper arm bulkhead, these little white inserts of different mounting positions for the upper arm, and they do have a direction, a certain way they go in. You see on there they've got a little triangle there and a triangle and a dot, so you need to make sure you get these in the right orientation. In order to stop the shaft of those upper arms from coming out, so the shaft that is contained within this bulkhead area, there's this tiny little Allen screw that screws into the white mount there, and the head of the screw actually overlaps those holes and captures that shaft inside the bulkhead to stop it from coming out. It's quite a neat idea, quite like that. And you've got 3 areas of adjustment here. Looks like we're onto the steering setup, because that mounts to the bottom of that front upper arm chassis assembly. So we'll be doing that first before the whole thing is bolted to the actual chassis itself. There's the steering assembly, all built and ready to go. So it's all free moving, all nice and free moving. A bit disappointed about the bushings in this arm here, that would have been nice to have those as bearings. But again, it's really free moving. It's not going to bind up or cause any strain on the servo. There's the 2 holes that steering assembly mounts to, basically orientated like that. So you've got this bar part here next to that, and you've got the back part of it where the servo link attaches to where those 2 wider brace parts are. Now we're at the point where we're introducing the servo that I'm going to be using for this drift project. This is the same servo that I'm using in the drift project right now. The Yet Racing hack gear servo, really fast, low profile. This is just the plain black one. That's your basic layout for how the servo is mounted. They do include in the pack a 23 and a 25 tooth servo horn. So I've got the 25 tooth, and the servo horn gets mounted at a 22-degree angle from the centre. You obviously need to make sure that the servo is actually centred. I haven't done that yet. When I plug it in, I'll disconnect the servo horn, centre it and then reconnect it. But I'll just get it all hooked up for now. We've finally got the front bulkhead all screwed in. It's quite nice because all the screws on the bottom, all the countersunk screws are all the same. M3 by 10. I haven't connected the steering servo because I also need to centre that servo when I get all the electronics hooked up, so I've left that off for now just so I can take that out, centre the servo, put the servo horn back on, and I can reinstall it and attach it all up. The steering is super smooth and not binding up or stiff in any way, so it's nice. So that's all of that done, so now it looks like we'll be doing the centre brace. That's how the upper deck is assembled. Another nice little touch, all these screws are the same. So on each side, 16 screws in all. It's really, really nice. Just simplifies the process of building it. That's the centre brace assembled. Place for the gyro just there. Sits just slightly higher than the brace itself. So you can just stick directly on there with some double-sided tape. Diff's looking like it's going to get a little bit complicated. So I'm not going to lay it out because you've got loads of little ball bearings. Especially there, those tiny, tiny little ball bearings. So I'm not going to lay it out in the order that it's actually assembled, but you can see it in the instructions there anyway. Do get 2 types of grease included. Get some black grease and some ball diff grease, which is quite nice. Then the various bits to assemble the diff. And you can see those tiny ball bearings there, so I've got to be really careful not to lose them. That was a real pain to assemble, with those tiny little ball bearings just there. It was really fiddly. So I basically placed the washer inside this part here first, then threaded the other washer onto the screw and pushed the screw in partially, and then fed the balls through this little gap here, and then just put a dab of grease in there and just push the screw all the way down. It worked in the end, but very fiddly. There's how to assemble one of the gear shafts in the rear, and this is the other set. That one there rotates the gear on there, on the diff itself, and then this system here, that attaches to the spur gear, and that gear on the end meshes with that one. That's those two made. Now you need to be careful with this one, because this confused me a little bit in the instructions. Just there, it looks like you put the pinion first and then put the gear on, which seems a little weird because it does actually have a slot in the back for the pin. So you slide the gear on first, you slide the gear on first past the point of the pin, put the pin in, and then slide it back onto, so it locates onto the pin, and then put the E-clip on. But that does mean that it can move up and down, so I've just dabbed a bit of grease down where the pin goes, just to hold it in place whilst we're messing around with it, just so that doesn't come off the shaft and be in the wrong place and the pin doesn't drop out. When assembling this rear gearbox section, you need to make sure of two things. Number one, you've got this centre part here that transfers the power from the spur gear to the actual diff. There is a dot on there. You can see the instructions. It says put that towards the B part of the gearbox, which is this part here. So if you're building it like this, if you've got the dot at the top facing this, it is in the right orientation. It's very clear in the instructions, but just to make you fully aware. But you can see that dot just there. That's got to be facing up if you're assembling it like that. The other thing to take note of is this part here, which I said that floats. So that's not engaging the gears at all. So there you go. Spin that, and it's not engaging the gears at all, but when you attach the spur gear, it pulls it up and meshes it with that gear there. It does have a spacer on that side. See that spacer there? That needs to be the correct thickness to get the correct mesh on those gears. Just two things to take note of there. This is held in with 3 screws. So one there, and there's one at the front that attaches to that chassis brace we've just made. Just as long as you follow the instructions carefully, you'll be alright. I have put a little bit of grease in there. It doesn't say anywhere in the instructions to put grease on, but I've just put a bit of the black bearing grease in there just to coat the gears, just so I'm not stripping them out. Now moving on to installing the spur, pinion and motor. So I'm going to make a selection of which pinion and spur I want to use. I've gone for Serpent spur gears, a 72, a 75 and a 78, and Yeah Racing pinion gears. These are hardened aluminium. So I've got a 32, a 33 and a 34. So what I'm going to do is go for the 2 middle ones, just a middle of the road setup, and I can always change to a lower pinion or a higher pinion, or a lower spur or a higher tooth spur. These are all 48 pitch gears, both pinion and spur, so they are matching. But yeah, we're going to go for 75 tooth spur and a 33 tooth pinion. And we're also installing the motor plate as well, which is aluminium, so you need to make sure you add in a little bit of Loctite to the screws that go into this plate, because it's metal on metal and they might undo. That's the motor plate and spur gear on, looking really nice. I really like that red anodised aluminium. They could have just provided a plastic one, but the aluminium's really nice. And when that's all in, you just want to give it a nice spin, make sure it's nice and smooth, it's not notchy at all. That's really nice. For a motor, I've gone for this, a Yeah Racing Hackmoto Mobster 10.5 turn brushless motor, censored brushless motor, recommended by all the guys I go drifting with. Like all the electronics, this was the standard that they went for. So a 10.5 turn with the 33 turn pinion. We're looking good. I had to go down a tooth on the pinion because the 33 wouldn't fit with this spur gear. So if I wanted to use a 33, I'd have to go down to a 72 tooth spur. But that mesh is perfect. There's a little bit of gap between the teeth. and it's looking really nice. I do need to solder those points there, whether or not I take the motor out or not, I'm not sure. But I do need to solder the motor wires onto there. So now we're finally going to get this whole brace, spine, rear gearbox section onto the chassis. Chassis is looking really nice now. It's really strong, really stiff. There's going to be no flex in that at all. So I've got space just here where these vents are for the electronics, receiver and ESC. So we can add those in later, and obviously that's the battery tray just there. But chassis is looking good. So we're going to finish off the episode, we're going to get these damper stays done. Front's fairly simple, the back's a bit more complex, got a bit more happening to it, but there's loads of areas of adjustment, so we'll see that on the car in a minute. That's it for this episode of the new drift project. Chassis is looking really nice clean build, loads of adjustability in the chassis. Next episode we'll be tackling the knuckles, front and rear, the shocks all around, and electronics, and then that should be the chassis done. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to check out the Facebook and Twitter pages, links down below in the description box, and I shall see you next time on RC Projects. Bye.